Okay, so parliament comes from the word parley, which means to discuss. Okay, now what does the parliament do? The parliament represents the country, the people of the country. Okay, so if you basically see parliament, it represents the people of India. Fine, you have got two houses. We follow bicameralism since Government of India Act 1919, wherein we have a House of People, the Lok Sabha, the lower house, which represents the population of India, and then there is Rajya Sabha, the elders house, or the Council of States, which represents the states in India. Okay, the regional governments. Okay, so if you see parliament and its function, you will see a lot of things, of which a few are really important to understand. They may not ask you directly like what are the functions of parliament, but then you have to have it in your mind when you are reading a chapter about parliament. So basically the first function of parliament is formation of government. Okay, we follow parliamentary system in which the executive is a part of the legislature. As such, formation of government is the very first function of parliament. Then other than that, you will see a lot of functions which are like ascertaining the accountability of the government. We know there are many instruments through which the accountability of the government is being ascertained on the floor of the house. Then is debate and discussions over important topics, and from this will flow the demand of making laws, enacting laws. That is one of the most important function of parliament, because laws are collective conscience of a society. Now, how does that collective decision is being taken? That is being taken through an institution known by the name of parliament. Other than this, you'll also see a lot of peripheral functions, like it acts as an appointing authority for many of the other institutions. Fine, it has got some judicial functions as well, like impeachment and all. So these are the most important of functions of the parliament. Yes, there are many other functions as well, but these are the most important of the functions of parliament. Fine, ये चीजें तो पार्लियामेंट करेगी ही करेगी, इसीलिए पार्लियामेंट है. Fine. So if you know this, then we'll go to the basics of parliament. See, we know that we have got this idea of parliamentary system from Britain. Now the system in Britain is called as the Westminster model. Okay, Westminster, that is the place where the British Parliament is located. So there is parliamentary sovereignty. You know that parliament is supreme. There is legislature of which executive is carved out, but then the parliament is supreme. Fine, you can always question the executive, but you cannot question the legislature. That is what procedure established by laws. पढ़ चुके हैं इसको. The second part is, see, the Indian system, because we got it from them, so generally our system is known by the name of Eastminster model. West is replaced by East, though we don't have a place in Delhi by the name of Eastminster, but because we imitated them, so that's why it is said to be a Eastminster model. But the Eastminster model is very much different from the Westminster one. That is because when they follow parliamentary sovereignty, we are following constitutional supremacy. Constitutional supremacy limits the power of the government. It is all about limited government. So the work of the executive or the legislature, or in that case the judiciary itself, is limited by the provisions so given under the Constitution of India. So everyone is domain-wise independent, given under the provision of Constitution. So that is what the Eastminster model is. Now if you see the organization of parliament in India, you will see three important institutions in it. Number one is the president, and then you see the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. Okay, now president does not go and sit in the sessions of the parliament, yet the president is an integral part of the Parliament of India because of two important functions. Number one is president assent. None of the bills so passed by either of houses, or both the houses rather, will ever become an act unless and until the president provides his assent. So that makes him one of the integral part of parliament, because the root functioning of parliament depends on the provision of assent so given by the president. No matter how much they debate, discuss, no matter what kind of laws they enact on their level, those bills will never become law unless and until there is assent of president. And the second thing is, the president, he functions in a way, in a lot more integral way in a lot of proceedings of the parliament. For example, summoning of the parliament or proroguing it, all of these things. We'll learn all of these terms in this chapter. Okay. See, एक चीज समझो, parliament, unlike what is the general notion that ये chapter तो रटना है, that is not the thing. Okay. Parliament is something which is very logic because it's an institution and institutionally based procedures are there. Yes, you need to memorize a lot of things, but it doesn't make the chapter one of the road memorization chapter. Okay, you need to understand the basics behind it. Fine. It has a historical perspective as well as a functional perspective. Okay, so the president in parliament in India is like the crown in parliament of Britain. Fine, we discussed about the authority of president. So the statement has been taken from that part. Now, when we discuss about the composition of the Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, let's take individually one house and discuss about its compositions. Okay, the Rajya Sabha, which is also called as the elders house, 5 साल बड़े होता है ना member इनके compared to Lok Sabha, so that's why elder house. Okay, other than that, the idea behind the Rajya Sabha was it will actually stop the hasty decisions and the wise counsel will be provided by the Rajya Sabha. Okay, so the maximum strength of Rajya Sabha is 250, of which there is representation of state and UTs. See, Rajya Sabha doesn't mean only representation of state. There is also representation of union territories in it. Okay, so 238 comes from state and UTs and 12 members are nominated by president. We have already read it in part of president. So the 12 members over here in the Rajya Sabha are nominated by the president. Now see, when we talk about, we just saw that there is representation of state as well as UTs. Let's see what happens for state. In case of state, the members are directly elected by the elected members of the state legislative assembly. So every state has their state legislative assembly. In that state legislative assembly, there are elected members. These elected members will elect the members of the Rajya Sabha. Now every state has got a few number of Rajya Sabha seats depending on their population as per schedule 4. So that number of seats which are to be filled up by the state legislature are elected by the elected members of state legislative assembly. Now how do they elect? They elect through a system of proportional representation by means of single transferable vote. How do they do it? They do it through a proportional representation system. Okay, because it is done by a proportional representation system, it means none of the votes are wasted. So that's why you don't need any kind of reservation. Whereas in Lok Sabha, we will see it's a first past the post system. Majority of the votes are wasted. In that case, you have got reservation also. क्योंकि सबका representation हो नहीं पाएगा, that we will read. Okay, now the number of seats in Rajya Sabha are allotted depending on the population of the state. Fine. Now that is what is the case with the states. Now, how do we get the representation from union territories? Now they are indirectly elected by the member of an electoral college specially constituted. So unlike our thinking कि directly elected member of the elected legislative assembly will be voting for the members of the Rajya Sabha in state is equal for UTs. No, that is not the case. Rather, it is through indirect election by an electoral college. What you need to understand is electoral college hota hai. Okay. They also follow the system of proportional representation by means of single transferable vote. And who has the representation? Delhi, Puducherry, and now Jammu and Kashmir as well. Okay. So that electoral college is decided who will be voting for the Rajya Sabha members. Okay. So we learnt about the 238 members from UTs and state. Let's talk about the 12 members who are nominated by the President of India. So the nominated member are nominated on the basis of special knowledge or practical experience in 4 things. If you remember, there are art, literature, science, and social sciences, social service. Now, if you remember, in case of governor, he used to nominate a few members. There you will get these 4 things plus cooperative movement. Remember, so यहाँ पे 4 होंगे, स्टेट में 5 हो जाएगा. 5वां वाला will be cooperative movement. And how does this take place? How does the nomination take place? Is it a discretionary power of the president? No, it is not a discretionary power of the president. Rather, he nominates the member based on the aid and advice given by the Council of Ministers. Got it? Now, the Rajya Sabha, let's talk about the duration. See, the constitution does not fix the term of Rajya Sabha. Remember this. When we say it is of 6 years, it is not the constitution which is fixing the duration of Rajya Sabha. Constitution nahi karta hai. Who does it? The Representation of the People Act passed by the Parliament. They have fixed the term of Rajya Sabha for 6 years for a member. Now the House is a continuing one. The members, they change. How they change? Now every 1/3 retire in every second year. 2 साल में एक बार 1/3 of the population will retire, and then new members will come in. That is why it is said to be a continuing chamber. There will be no time wherein you will see that the whole population of Rajya Sabha is meted out. That is not the case. Or like Lok Sabha, where there takes place dissolution. ऐसा नहीं होगा. Rajya Sabha will be a continuing chamber. 1/3 of the population will go out every second year. फिर उनको नए इलेक्शन से भर देंगे. So it will be a continuing chamber. Okay.